Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast, the official podcast of Pineland, broadcasting to you from an undisclosed location deep inside Pineland, where we discuss faith, family, finances, firearms, freedom, food, and everything else in between, with those who believe in living free and living out the values that made this country free. Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast. My name is Paul LaFavor. I'm here with my Ranger buddy, Mike Blackburn, and today is Friday, the 17th of June, 2022. This is episode 28, and I've been bugging Mike to do one of these for a while, a podcast on something that we see in the Special Forces course all the time that's been bugging me, and that is key leader engagements. And really like how to do them better, how to avoid certain pitfalls, kind of put in a philosophy, if you will, of key leader engagements within the setting of you're a Special Forces advisor. So this is kind of pointedly directed at students in the Q course, but it will have, application for everybody else.
Yeah, I think it does too. I mean, it's kind of funny because the information age has got a lot of advantages to it. One of the disadvantages, at least in my opinion, is because there's such a reliance and use of technology today. I don't think there's that much human interaction as there used to be.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
I remember times when it kind of like took me aback when I really, if someone would have told me that, I'd been like, I don't think so. But, you kind of witness it. And it's like, I remember times when I've actually gone up to, some folks in the younger generation, maybe to a counter, okay, and they're in front of their screen, okay, and you're wanting something, because of course I could have called in or I could have, whatever, but I decided to go down in person because, that's kind of the way I was raised. It's always better to do face to face. So I'd go down there and you could see like they'd be visibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When you're standing in front of them.
Can you just text me?
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
No, and that's what they would do. It's like, well, I'd rather if you could just maybe call or, send it to the computer. And it's just, and that kind of like just kind of takes you back a little bit where, you realize that there's a lot of folks that are now sort of uncomfortable with the whole, face-to-face dynamic.
Absolutely. No, that pretty much underscores what I've been seeing as a trend for the last, I would say, 10 years. Now, I've been, those of you who don't know, Mike and I used to work out at the Special Forces course at the what they call TAC Skills now. It used to be formerly known as Small Unit Tactics. I also work at there now, and what I've been seeing since 2010 is pretty much a degradation in social skills and basic interpersonal communication and things of that sort. And so that's why I wanted to do this podcast on this particular topic of key leader engagement, because I see a lot of sucky KLEs, okay? And so maybe this will help some guys out there. Also, guys serving out in the force. Maybe I hope this would be good for you to put in your tool bag and then maybe kind of hone some of your skills. Why? Because, if you can't train people as a Green Beret, then you suck. You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to talk. You're an advisor. You are America's best trainer, advisor. And so this is really important. This is kind of, I would say, in large measure, the meat and potatoes of what we do as Green Berets. I don't know if you would agree.
Well, absolutely. I mean, even in business, this has an application regardless.
Absolutely.
I mean, anytime that you're having to interact with the public, or somebody that's not, in your family or in your a team that you're regularly with all the time and you have a certain level of comfort with, there's times when you're going to have to get out there and you're going to have to, interact with, try to influence or whatever others. And that's kind of like what, and of course, in special forces, that's a big part of
Absolutely.
our job. Is being able to go out there and influence and interact with other cultures and what have you. So it's particularly important for us.
Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of take a bigger paintbrush and kind of paint the scene here, okay? Something like this. Let's just say you're an advisor like Lawrence of Arabia, Thomas Edward Lawrence. Okay, go back to the First World War. If you remember, Lawrence of Arabia, he was in a basement in Cairo before he was discovered. He was down in the tool shop, hating his life because they wanted to get into the show. They found out this guy could speak Arabic and knew the culture. He was an archaeologist in that area of the world. We're talking the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, Palestine, Israel, Syria, all that stuff. And so this was a guy with skills. They gave him a shot, and then the big thing is, he linked up with the Arab leaders who had started a revolt against the Ottoman Turks. And the Brits just had to figure out, hey, we need somebody to lead that thing, right? And so Lawrence, one of his missions was to go down there and find out, okay, who can be the leading spirit of this Arab revolt. So he found the guy, of course, but it's how he did it that just says so much about KLEs. And I say that because as Special Forces advisors and SOF advisors, right, we're operating really in what we call irregular warfare. So I kind of wanted to that's the big brush stroke is irregular warfare. And that's something that we like to talk about a lot here at Blacksmith, and we'll probably talk about more, is irregular warfare really involves 5 areas. You have your 5 pillars, if you will: counterterrorism, UW, counterinsurgency, foreign internal defense, and then stability operations. So I kind of missed one there. But more often than not, so we're looking at UW, COIN, counterinsurgency, and foreign internal defense. So let's just pick on those 3, UW, COIN, and FID. And in those 3 areas, I know that I've done a lot of advising. I've been linked up with various units, maybe not so much in the as the level of importance as Lawrence of Arabia, but I've been an advisor to the Army of Nepal, Bangladesh, Korea, all over Europe and stuff like that, in Africa. And what you say matters. Words matter. How you interact matters. And so what I wanted to do is, in light of kind of my experience, and I think we can banter here, Mike, is really I want to introduce, if you will, 8 principles of a KLE. If I could be so bold as to say principles.
Yeah,
and that's kind of crazy, right?
No, I think, and this is something that you came up with as well. I think we're always trying to. I mean, people remember things with mnemonics and acronyms, and this is kind of a military way of remembering stuff. A lot of material, and you've done the same thing. So you've kind of done the brain assist here by creating a little acronym for folks.
Yeah. Now I have to also have to give a shout out to one of my friends, Rob Scott, who helped me formulate some of these. So between the 2 of our brains, we came up with this.
Oh yeah, man.
So I mean, but anything we do, that's really where the awesomeness happens. Is you meet some other brain.
You just do a lot of listening, of listening, and a lot of writing.
Yeah. But yeah, so without further ado, the 8 principles of a KLE I will submit to you is cascade, or cascades.
Plural. Yeah.
So cascades, just follow the idea that, information that you're gleaning from a KLE. Now, obviously you're wanting to get information, and you want to build rapport and influence what's happening. All these things are happening. I mean, at least those things are happening. And so the information you get kind of just cascades down to the team and to your higher command so they know what's going on. And so the influence cascades, the information does. So just kind of follow that. And then, basically it's cascade. It's cultural awareness, agenda, self-awareness, communication, accommodation, dissemination, expectation management, and situational awareness and security. So I kind of wanted to just break those down, and then we can just kind of interact and talk about some of the nuances of what we've seen, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of KLEs.
And then, of course, in case you missed it earlier, because we're really bad about just throwing stuff out there that maybe we don't explain, but KLE, key leader engagement. So that's what we're talking about. We're just talking about basically key folks in a room having a conversation.
That's it. So the idea could be, you say you're an advisor. For example, I was part of, my detachment was sent to Haiti back in '95. That was a Haitian vacation. As 18 Charlie, I was also a pay agent. I was with First Group at the time, and we had to work with the Bangladesh and Nepalese. And so that was kind of interesting. None of us really spoke those languages. It just happened to be, hey, that's an area of responsibility for First Group. There you go, send a First Group team. Anyway, it ended up being a really good experience. But one of the things I learned is, man, I messed up a lot. I mean, broke a lot of the rules that I now understand. Back then, I didn't have a clue. I was kind of just thrown into it. But it brings to mind cultural awareness. I knew nothing about the Bangladesh culture, the Nepalese culture. In fact, I didn't get there. I wasn't there for a few months until I found out that, hey, these are different people. Okay. Nepal is, as you guys probably know, is predominantly Buddhist. And then you have Bangladesh is predominantly, Nepal is predominantly Hindu. Sorry about that. And then Bangladesh is predominantly Islam. And so you always have to learn there. You got to stay on your game. But these are different religions. They're from different parts of Asia. That was just to kind of show my stupidity. So cultural awareness is really just reminds us that you got to be knowledgeable of the culture, and to go kind of bigger picture here. You could say that creation is what God makes, and culture is what we make with what God makes. So we kind of make. So culture could be art, language. It could be basically anything that we make, right? And so you need to be knowledgeable of that, and then its effects on the operational environment. So that's of course the first soft imperative: know your operational environment. So I was basically breaking that. I didn't know that. I didn't know really their religion, their ideology, their roles, anybody I was interacting with. So I was basically just clueless. So you don't want to do that. And, we see a lot of guys that they are probably okay on that. Let's just say in Pineland, the culture is pretty much the same. We're talking like basic redneck culture. So that's not really that important. I mean, it's not hard to get that one. But obviously when you go out and about a little bit more, you're going to have some differences of politics, religion, just those types of issues. You probably need to know about that so you're not caught unawares and then say something dumb. And so, I think you would agree, right, Mike? I mean, cultural awareness is kind of a big deal for Green Berets.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to be just sort of aware of the differences and the fact that just even silly things like habits and
yeah,
things that we kind of take for granted. They have a whole different way of operating in different cultures. You got to be aware of it.
Yeah, like this is also something that, I mean, when people think about Green Berets, one of the first things they think of is, this competence in cultural awareness in order to build rapport. So, obviously this is a big issue of, you're probably not going to be able to build good rapport if you're tone deaf culturally.
Right.
That's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
So probably need to do your homework on that and know what's going on before you get into it. Unlike me and the Haitian vacation.
Well, I think it's Well, and I think we learn pretty quick. Even folks that are not in SOF. I mean, if you're in the military and you're deployed overseas, I mean, one of the things that you have to do pretty quick is sort of figure out what normal looks like where you're going. Otherwise, you don't even know what to be scared of. So pretty much anytime you travel overseas, even if you're a civilian on vacation, what you should do is just keep your eyes open, your ears open, kind of get a sense of normal. What's normal for where you're at?
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
And then when something looks other than normal, then you can start,
that's a good
perking
question.
up a little bit and being concerned.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is to say, hey, what's normal here? What's the baseline here?
That's right.
And then so I think that makes sense, right? I mean, I don't know. We need to flesh that out a little bit more. I think did we nail that one?
I hope so.
Okay. So just following the acronym here, agenda. So one thing on this I note is I didn't want to talk too much about tradecraft with the Robin Sage course. Obviously, you go out there, you're going to get some more details on that. So I didn't want to talk. I wanted to kind of talk around that, but the idea is you want to have about 3 to 5 points in your agenda because I would say just like your span of control, your sphere of influence, span of control in leadership is usually 3 to 5. So after that, you're not really going to be able to remember.
Right. Listen, there's nothing unique about an agenda for a meeting. I don't care where you're at, what you're doing, even in civilian business. If you're going to waste people's time, bringing them together for a meeting, there should be some sort of objective that you're trying to reach by gathering everybody and taking them away from their work. So it's important when you're going into the meeting to have a kind of an idea what you want to have on the outside of it, on the end of it.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, there's a balance here. We don't want to meander, but we do want to have something that, because we want to gain some type of information.
Right.
So let's just say we put it into Robin Sage land. The first thing could be, are you invited to the guerrilla base? Will they accept you? That's probably a good one. That may be just the first one you do, just to put it into that context. But the other thing, let's just put it kind of widen the aperture a little bit. You kind of need to have an agenda, something that you're going in there, you're seeking to gain some type of information, you're trying to influence something. But then again, it's balanced, so you don't want to be inflexible because
something might pop up.
Yes. So here's the thing: somebody you're going to talk to, they may not know that agenda. They may not want to hear that up front, and it may sound very wooden for you to just list what you want. So you may.
Well, the other thing too is there's competing agendas, and you have to recognize that.
Yeah.
And somebody else's agenda might be useful to you. You might not even know.
Right.
You got to be receptive to it.
Exactly. So this underscores the importance of active listening. Active listening is we're not just so stuck to our agenda that we're missing the cues. We're missing like what this person is saying. And so this is just reminds you this principle. Hey, look, have an agenda, have something that you thought about going in with, but then don't be so inflexible that you can't nuance that. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then self-awareness. Self-awareness, obviously this is, I'd say crucial skill. Guys that I would say I'm 50 years old, but guys in life that fail, I've seen a lot of guys, they don't have self-awareness. And so this is usually you become aware of this pretty quick. If somebody is socially tone deaf, they don't have self-awareness, it's going to show. They don't know the cues. They can't read. They don't even know. First off, they don't even know their own how they're being
received.
Their words, how they're being received. Thank you. They don't really. They're just talking, and they're just. Or how about this? When they're in a conversation, they're just waiting for their opening to start talking, and they're not really listening. They're just waiting for the person in front of them to stop talking so they can talk.
Yeah, it requires it requires a certain degree of humility, I think, to get good at self-awareness, and you have to be able to ask the questions like, and maybe your close friends are a good place to start. It's like how do I come off?
Yes.
How did I come off? How do you think that was received? Because I think all that feedback's real important, because you just got to be real with yourself. I mean, you may not be an excellent orator, you might, but you just recognize that it's okay. But just kind of understand where your own strengths and weaknesses are when you're going into a KLE.
Exactly. There's a balance here too. Is a lot of guys I see that can talk. They're good talkers, right? But that is not necessarily going to be awesome,
Right?
because you're just unaware. And then somebody says something. I'll just give you an example. You see this sometimes. The guy has an agenda. He's not self-aware, and he's so stringent on his agenda that the guy apart from him says something that's unique, and that would be like, "Hey, you might want to stop and camp onto that for a while." But the guy just misses the cue and just keeps going with the spiel.
Exactly.
And you're like, yeah, you just blew it, buddy.
Yeah.
That's always not good to see.
Yeah, and of course this might roll into another one of your points there, but authenticity.
Yeah.
And that probably falls a little bit into communication, but
Yeah.
part of the self-awareness also is you want to present yourself as authentic, and caring, and
Yeah.
and therefore not yourself. You're not just in there, knocking out your agenda.
Right. I mean, on that note too is a bigger kind of widening this a little bit more is what we would call emotional intelligence. That's a big part of this. A book that we often mention is Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. That's a book that you really have to read in psychology fields. Great read. And the idea is somebody with emotional intelligence, they just kind of know how their personality. They know their personality. They know how they're coming across. They can sense when they've talked too much, when they're not engaging enough. They have that sense that they just can kind of look outside of themselves, if you will, and kind of have an awareness of just how they're acting, their speech patterns, all that stuff. So that's a big part of it. And
is that a part of self-awareness, or is that better in the next in communication, which you're getting ready to talk about?
I think that kind of segues into that. So communication is the next one. And the idea with communication is, this is really what you're doing in a key leader engagement is you're communicating. So you have verbal, nonverbal communication. These are basic interpersonal skills. And so the idea is, words have meaning. This is why we say a lot that, hey, what you say matters. What you say, how you say it, all of this feeds rapport building, influence, all that stuff. So this is just part of that bigger topic of communication, So if someone has, let's just say that they have poor communication skills, right? They can't articulate what they're going to say, right? Plus, they're not able to kind of read the environment. They're not able to base off of what somebody is telling them to kind of understand, kind of sense that underlying motive that the person's talking about, what they're saying behind the words. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The words have meaning. They also is when they communicate. Let's say they don't communicate effectively. It's usually based off of basic stuff. Just like really basic tenets of communication. One is just make some sense. It's just as simple as that. Make some sense. Say something that makes sense, and that it's intelligent, and then you have I don't know. What would you say to that? Like
I don't know.
I think I'm kind of I think I'm complicating the obvious.
Well, no, I mean, this is, and it is a little bit complicated. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, some of us are still trying to figure out how to communicate with our wives, okay?
Yeah.
And other family members. So there's definitely, when you're talking about now a different culture and, my goodness. So you really have to be turned on every sense and just taking in information and also relying. You're probably not going in there by yourself, okay? So you really need to be relying on your team that you're in there. Everybody's got, it's sort of just picking up all of the information that's floating around that room. And because you're going to have a conversation after this thing, but it's really important. I think what you're saying is really just picking up all these nuances and everything. Yeah. It's all a part of communication, all the body language, what's going on when someone else is talking, how are others reacting. I mean, all this stuff plays.
Exactly. So this, this underscores the fact that it's dynamic.
It very.
Yeah. It's not wooden. It's dynamic. And if you are not picking up on the cues, you're going to blow it, and you're probably going to blow some rapport. You're going to lose influence. You're going to lose respect. You may even disrespect the person you're talking to. That may just say, "Hey, I'm done."
Yeah.
So this is kind of a big deal.
That's hard to get back once you lose that.
Yeah, and then
your access.
Yeah, and then you made this point when we began this discussion is so many people they don't have basic interpersonal communication skills, so they would rather not look at you and talk. They want, hey, can you just text? And, I mean, look, we love using our phones. Our phones are important. We can do so many awesome things with it, but we can also be enslaved to our phones. So we got to be, we got to look at that. So anyway, the idea with communication, really, just to kind of cap this principle, is it's a skill set. Talking is a skill. It's not just you just go in there and wing it. So this means, hey, before we go into the KLE, we probably want to rehearse what we're going to say.
Well, I think that's crucial.
Write it down. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of talk it out. A lot of lectures I've given, I write those out.
Yeah.
I'll be in a room by myself and I'll just talk these through and just kind of see how that sounds.
Yeah, go through a couple sessions. You might have a couple of ideas of how the people that you're going to meet with, how they're going to react, maybe some of the questions they may have somebody play them.
Right.
And see how it goes. Be prepared for as many different weird things and make sure that you got a good response and you kind of know how you're going to handle things before you go in there.
Exactly. So the other thing that I'm reminded about this is when you're talking, you're checking in with somebody you're talking to. So there's basic skills of just we would gather from psychology, right? So we ask like open-ended questions. We check in. So we say, hey, did I hear that right? What I'm hearing you say is this.
Right.
Right. And so we want to use those basic communication skills. But yeah, I think we kind of beat that one.
It's important.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that you kind of brought a lot of these, issues up. And I think it's just more than just simply, communication. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
There's a lot to it. Yeah.
So accommodation. Following the acronym here. Let me explain that a little bit. So obviously when we're working with, host nations, foreign nations, we could be in a gray area. In fact, a lot of what we do in special operations is gray. It's grayscale warfare. It's not well defined. And so there's a lot of ambiguity in what you're doing. You may not know, where someone's authority begins or ends. And then what we're looking at accommodating is we want to accommodate ourselves and what we're doing so we can make things happen, except when it's unlawful, immoral, or unsafe. And so that's the idea. So let's just say someone says something bizarre. The guy, say he's a Nazi. We'll pick on Nazis, right? And the guy hates Jews, right? So obviously, if he says something so off color and bizarre, we can bracket whatever that person says. It's called bracketing in psychology. What we can do is skillfully segue off of that topic and kind of carry the conversation on without just kind of dying on that hill, and then the conversation would just be dead right there. And so that would be able to accommodate to what this other person's issue. But the idea is when it comes to like something that's immoral, unlawful, or unsafe, we kind of, we have to stop and
you're going to have to
hill.
address that. Yeah. And what you're hoping is that the person that you're having a conversation with, of course, is self-aware and is picking up all the signals from you.
Yeah.
And the fact that you bracketed that and you kind of got away from it and you're not comfortable there and you want to kind of get back on topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way you do this is crucial. So our choice of words is important. Our tone is important. We don't want to come across as judgmental, right? We want to like, hey, why would you ever say something like that? That's completely ridiculous. But we do want to, say if something that's off color like that, off color versus, hey, illegal, immoral, unsafe. And obviously, I would say that would be an immoral thing too. For this person to hate a Jew, and you say, hey, well, now we've got one on our team, and now you're saying that. Well, obviously that's a problem.
That's not the right response, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't be the right response. So that would obviously be a huge problem. But anyway, the idea with accommodation is we're going to run into somebody that doesn't believe just like us.
Sure.
It's going to happen. They don't have the same religion. They don't have the same political stance. There's something that, their worldview is going to clash with ours. And if we just died on that, then our Kaylee is essentially done. Our rapport can die. Then we've got maybe and you look at this, the second and third order effects could be catastrophic. We'd have a catastrophic fallout because here's the thing. Now, our listeners may know this. There's essentially 3 levels of war: tactical, operational, and strategic level. And a KLE can have strategic level effects, even though we're operating on a tactical level. It could be somebody, somebody at a national level. And so if we have some type of fallout, this could affect national level policy, and we could be kicked out of country. This could kick U.S. forces out of country. This is a big deal. It could be that big. But so the idea is we want to kind of have our curb feelers out for things like that and avoid those pitfalls. That's the idea. And not act surprised like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said something so horrendous and ridiculous. And so we kind of want to be non-emotive if we can. That would be good.
Accommodating.
Yeah, accommodating to the point that we don't do something like, if it's illegal, obviously, then we can't play.
Right, those are lines you have to
yeah, and then this
cross.
is stuff that we try to make sure the students know, right? Hey, look, we can do X, Y, Z, but we can't do these other things because, well, then you're not going to get money, you're not going to get support, you're not going to get all that stuff. So, there's a balance in that also. And then now, as this follows, with the next principle is dissemination. We see a big issue with this too. You'll have a guy that will go in, he'll hit a home run. They'll talk to these other personalities. They'll get some good stuff out of that. They'll get information. They'll build rapport. They'll influence these actors. But in the last analysis, they forget to disseminate to the team or whoever it is. And then, lo and behold, the team will send somebody else out to go, interact with the same person, and then they won't even know who that person is. And then you look like jabronis. You look incompetent because you failed to disseminate. And so really what that's supposed to happen is, let's just say 2 guys go out and they talk to 2 other guys, right? They come back and then they capture that information in some way. And then they disseminate it. They pass it on to the rest of the team. That's kind of a big deal because, for example, I sat on one KLE, and these guys who can remain nameless to protect the guilty, they talked to this other individual, and they said, hey, you're going to do, X, Y, Z, these nefarious things we want you to do, right? To kind of sabotage something. Well, the guy agreed, and then they said, "Hey, what was your name again?" And I just thought, wow, this is the third time you guys are meeting with this asset, and the two times.
And he was so important you couldn't remember his name.
Yeah, here you go. You just sent him off to his death. He's so important, you don't even know his doggone name. So
Yeah, dissemination, and I'm really glad you included this because it's something that you see a lot of leaders not doing very well at.
absolutely.
To include myself. I mean, back when I was still wearing a uniform. But we have a tendency to sort of hog the information as leaders sometimes, and we really have to kind of get out of the habit of doing that. We need to be sharing and downloading as much as we can as leaders, no matter what it is, and especially in these situations.
Yeah, it's a great point. Is look, they say, when we were growing up as leaders, they say knowledge is power.
That's right.
And so the tendency for a leader who is self-conscious, doesn't have confidence, I would say, is to sit on an information and then kind of dell it out when needed to kind of protect his idea of
His
power,
status and
his
where
status.
he's at. Yeah. Everyone needs to come to him for the information.
Right, but what inevitably happens is people they're not informed, and the unit doesn't perform as well.
That's right.
And so you want to avoid that. So basically, you're not doing yourself any favors by sitting on the information. Just give it out as soon as you can, and then you're looking at the 8-step of the troop leading procedure. Just supervise.
Yeah.
Give it out.
And when disseminating too, making sure that you're getting that feedback and
Yes.
how are you interpreting what I just disseminated?
Yeah. I give a 5-point. I say, now what did I just say?
Yeah, and am I is my interpretation of this correct? I mean, this is what we got out of the meeting. I mean, is this really what we got?
Exactly. So, I mean, there's so much that's important there, but yeah, it's
huge.
The idea, the last analysis is it'll damage rapport. You can lead to mission failure just by not putting things out. So that's kind of a tough thing. But then again, not. And then expectation management, kind of following the acronym here. This is so huge. I mean, in so many things, from being a father, right? If you promise your kids something, then you got to deliver, right? You promised, Disney World, and you better be bringing that, to fruition. With anything, I think, especially in the Army, expectation management is big, right? And then,
and in business,
anything. So words have meaning. What you say, people are going to write down. Let's just say, for example, MacArthur said, "I will return." I think he made that statement because he wanted people to have expectation management on that. He wanted to cast something on the horizon that, hey, they were really coming back. We didn't forget about you, this, that, and the other. But the idea is that could be a two-edged sword.
But he did go back.
But he actually did go back, yeah.
That's the other part of that. I mean, he was trying to obviously let people know he was coming back.
And
but he also meant what he said.
He didn't say when he was coming back.
Right.
So
be careful.
I will come back in the spring. Be careful with that. So the idea with this principle is this. Think about what you're promising. Right. And do you need to promise this?
Yeah, because you might not.
Right. And there's some other ways you can say this. You can say, this is almost cliche. Some of the people that know me will laugh at this point, but you can say, that's in the realm of possibilities. That's doable. That's a doable goal. I think that's a possibility that we could look at doing that. Look at your wording. And so when it comes to promises, you want to make less. Less is best with promises. The ones you make,
under promise, over deliver.
Under promise, over deliver. Absolutely. So that's a good ditty for that. But yeah, you want to set doable goals, and the promises you make, you actually want to keep. Now, here's another example. So I told you earlier that I was in Haiti. It was the Haitian vacation back in '95. I'm a young E6 from First Group. I was learning a lot, right? And I learned a lot about interacting with foreign governments on that trip, amongst other things. But one of the things I remembered is the Bangladesh contingent. There was a major, a Bangladesh major. He had this list he had from the State Department. The U.S. State Department had given him a promissory note that said he was going to gain said equipment once that he got his unit to Haiti.
Wow.
So he showed me this. I had never seen one of those before.
Yeah.
So I was enamored. Well, on that, one of the first items was 2 Mercedes-Benz staff cars, 2 black Mercedes-Benz staff cars. And I just, I gulped and I thought, yeah, that was quite a promise.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have any of those on the island.
He was looking for you to be forking that over.
Let's deliver that, U.S. Army.
Yeah, you look like you look like an American. You're from the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your government just told me, you know.
So that ended up translating into 10 Cut Vs at the time. So Cut Vs, there were Chevy pickups. That was a big deal. It was kind of like before the Humvees.
Yeah, you got to love the State Department.
And they were like, yeah. So the State Department guy, they did their part by getting the Bangladesh guys on board. And then I was left holding the bag. The way out of that bag was really, we lost rapport.
Yeah.
We lost a little bit of face. And I had to figure out, how do I make this happen? Well, the best I could come up with some pickups. And I just had to do. But yeah, expectation management, like I said, that carries into so many fields in the human endeavor. We would do our best to remember, as you said, to how did you say it again? Under promise
and over deliver. Yeah, I mean, if the State Department would have just said something as simple as 2 vehicles.
Yeah.
You
said sweeten the pot.
You could have, you could have come in with something pretty nice, and it'd been like, dang, he was expecting, something pretty nice there that you weren't. There was just no way you were coming up with that.
Yeah, and then we like to think through, problem solving. But anyway, I think he was also upset that they weren't black, so. But they were camo. But hey, what are you going to do? That's the best you can come up with.
That's a great example of expectation management.
Now, I don't want to pass by this too. I've seen a few examples of guys, students, that have promised things in the beginning, and this has come back to haunt them. And those guys, like towards the end where they're doing their transition, like, hey, you said this was going to happen. Yeah. And, that didn't materialize. So,
you lose face.
Yeah, you lose face. But, and then situational awareness and security. So this again is kind of, it may go without saying, we have self-awareness, right? And then we have situational awareness. So there's a difference here. The idea with situational awareness is,
Well, I'm glad you put that first.
Yeah.
Because all too often in these meetings, it gets the security looks a little ridiculous. It almost is a hindrance to the agenda.
Right.
So you have to be able to figure out how to make sure that everyone is safe in the room. Okay, that you have it security, but it doesn't need to be overt. It doesn't need to be in your face.
Right.
And I think that's where the situational awareness really comes in, plays a big part, because if you're reading the room and you're reading the environment, then you can kind of start ramping up logically based off of what you're picking up.
Right. And then something I mentioned earlier is. When you set up the KLE, something also you need to look at is, who's going to be controlling the venue. Mm-hmm. You need to look that through also, like what rooms are going to be in. You might want to know that who's going to be sitting where, where are you going to be sitting? Who's going to have? You got enough chairs? Right. Those things.
If something happens where you go inner and outer cordons and all kinds of things.
Right, and then so this also lends itself to security. Mm-hmm. So we often say this, that you'll probably have, let's say, example, one guy is going to be doing the majority of the talking, and then there's a backup guy, right? And that guy will probably ask, hey, is it okay if I take some notes, right? And then that's always good to ask that. And then you really need to have what we call a guardian angel. This is somebody that's an overwatch. Mm-hmm. Somebody's kind of watching all this happen, and somebody that's going to bail you out if things go sideways. And then the ones where we've seen failures, you have two guys are talking, they got their back to the door, there's nobody watching the door.
Yeah,
and then anybody can walk in and do whatever they want. And obviously the people in the the people you're talking to are going to be, they should be looking out for that too. But the idea as the advisor, that's really your purview, security. And then also like further afield, like a QRF. Here's the big thing. When you do a KLE, it's a mission. This is a tactical mission. This is not just a throwaway. And so the guys that don't treat this just like a raid, just like an ambush, they've had problems. So this is not just, hey, let's think about this real quick and then walk out the door, half cocked. Let's have, a communication plan. Let's have like the 5 W's. Just like an op order,
they're a big deal.
Yeah, this is a big deal. And then so when it comes to security, in light of what's happened, we've had a lot of green on blue incidents, Iraq and Afghanistan. And then one in particular, I recently read about, and you guys, everybody, a lot of our guys that go through the Q course heard about this. It happened on the 8th of February, 2020. It was a 7th group team. They were finishing up a KLE in Nangarhar province, and as they went out, they were ambushed by a rogue Afghan policeman, and they shot him up pretty bad. So they had 2 KIAs. They had SFC Gutierrez and SFC Rodriguez, and so the whole point is these guys actually had security, but this was somebody on the inside. This was a green on blue, and so it just takes the stakes a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. You've had we could go further afield where you have it's part of this. There's so many other KLEs that have happened like this. You could throw the one that happened in to 3rd group and Niger, kind of in the same thing. They were doing kind of a running KLE, and they had a security issue when they knew, hey, they were going to be going back the same way, and somebody was able to, get an ambush set up for them. And so that's the idea, is you're looking at going in and going out. I'm not saying they didn't plan right, but I'm just saying that that's always an issue.
Absolutely.
In light of the things that's happened, hey, let's not just roll in there and go be half-cocked and kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's time and place predictability. I mean, you don't want to be time and place predictable.
Yeah, and that's the idea is, a lot of KLEs have gone badly because they weren't treated as real missions.
That's right.
Not to say these guys that got shot and killed were in that mindset, but it just reminds us that we have to plan these KLEs just like they were any other tactical mission.
They can go sideways even with the best laid plan.
Yes. But that's pretty much the odds, odd and ends of situational awareness, and security. And then when you look at the big picture of a KLE, KLEs can glean so many good things. That could get us initially into the G base. That could, for this example, this could influence our partner force. This could, we could have, this could like repair a breach that's happened.
Yeah, I mean,
it can move things forward. There's so many different uses for a KLE.
Well, it's all about relationships. We've talked about that a lot. I mean, all this stuff's really, what we're talking about is developing relationships, good, sound relationships. And the KLE is how you do that.
Yeah. And then here's the other thing is just because you're a Sergeant E5 doesn't mean you're not going on a KLE. Oh, yeah. Okay, you might find yourself on one of those. You could be, regardless of rank, if you're in the Special Forces, you're a leader, and you're going to be expected and called on to do these types of missions. So guys out there that are listening might want to think those things through so you're not surprised. And I don't know if I said this at the beginning of this podcast, but I say a lot of guys fail because of these types of missions. They just, what I'm saying is, a lot of guys that do their shooting and they're moving good, but they're communicating
is bad. Yeah.
It's not that good. I mean, that's really the thing. We could see and arguably you see some shoddy tactics employed, but most guys know their MOS. They can do a raid or an ambush, but the actions on the objective when it comes to a KLE oftentimes is lacking. It's wanting. And that leads to bigger problems. So if we can tighten up the shot group, we're going to do a little bit better. That's really the argument.
Yeah, it's a little more cerebral intensive.
Yeah.
And they are crucial. So to recap, just Cascades is the mnemonic there. Cultural awareness.
Yeah.
Agenda. Self-awareness. Communication. Accommodation. Dissemination, expectation management, and then last, situational awareness and security.
That's it.
So that just kind of helps you
and it's a fun
kind of remember
acronym.
This stuff. It is fun. Cascades. Yeah.
Acronyms are always fun. I mean, there's always more to make. But hey, that's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to go over, Mike. And I know there's so many other things we could talk about, but I wanted to kind of lay the foundation for this type of these types of podcasts.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is you said something there at the end that really just kind of made me think, and that is it's not always the senior leader that's going to end up being your money maker, if you will. It might be the lowest ranking guy on the team. Because when you go into these meetings, when you go into these relationship building sort of environments, it might be the youngest guy on that team or the youngest guy that you've brought along that might make a connection. And again, I think you need to be situationally aware and see that if you got a connection there, I mean, there's like a personality where those guys are like just hitting it off.
Yeah,
you got to be able to like pivot pretty quick and kind of capitalize that.
That's true. So, one of the things that I learned as a team sergeant is you're a talent scout. So when you have
that's a good way to put it.
A little mission that you got to send two guys out, you're looking at compatibility for those guys, who's best suited for the mission, and that's ranking material.
It is.
So and oftentimes MOS and material. You're just looking at two guys for the job, the best do it, and so you're also doing that in obviously in Robin Sage when you're planning missions. You're looking at that too. So those are just some gems I want to throw out to you guys. Guys that are getting ready, they're going through the queue or something like that. I hope you get a lot out of this KLE podcast. There's so much more out there, but that's really the gist of it.
Yeah, and I think this thing, besides just the culmination exercise of the Q course, just this human interaction, really this interpersonal skills, this social interaction. I mean, this kind of will apply anywhere, and no matter what you're doing. I think even in selection and just how you're interacting with folks and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we're going to see some better KLEs in the days ahead. It's always exciting when you see somebody that's paying attention, that's making it happen.
Let me ask you a question, Paul. If somebody's getting ready to go to the Q course, what are some things that maybe they can do to sort of get ahead of this? And because this isn't something you just read.
Absolutely.
And then also you go out and execute. I mean, what are some things that maybe you've thought of that could help somebody sort of like get better at this?
Yeah, well, the first thing I wanted to just suggest that you would get Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. Now it's a little cerebral for guys that didn't do a lot of reading. But it's psychology that's not heavy psych.
It might be an audiobook.
Yeah, and there you go. But I think that's a great
listen to
read.
it while you're cruising down the road.
Yeah, I think he's got some fundamental skills in there. I think that if you pay attention to those, you may pick up on a lot of things a lot of guys are failing on. And namely, that's your self-awareness, and self-awareness is huge. And so that's something to kind of widen your periphery a little bit and widen your aperture on this topic. And then obviously, just get better at talking is, you got to talk. So there's some ways to actually, you can take this and just do practice KLEs. So you can do this with your buddy that's going to be going through, and you can practice KLEs. So this guy can be a role player, and you just talk through and let the guy be brutally honest. And then, you got to rehearse this. So oftentimes we'll see guys who will show up. The first time they're ever doing that is when they're out there. And I think that's, you failed. You should be doing that prior to coming out. And I think some guys don't know how to do it, and that's fine. But the idea is just talking, and kind of get some reps using that, that
and get that feedback too. So
the feedback, yeah. And so, irrespective of the topic, somebody can give you feedback. Well, hey, you didn't really make a lot of sense there. And, maybe you could articulate yourself a little bit better this way. And also you got these, these things you do when you're talking. You're saying a lot, and like maybe you'll tap. You have these other nonverbal things that are distracting. And so somebody that's sitting across from you can actually pick up on those things, and you can kind of minimize those nonverbal distractors. And then that's another way that you can kind of clean up your communication.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you need to practice, and you get better at with repetitions, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Pinelander Podcast. And if you enjoyed the content and unique perspective, we hope you'll check out our sponsors. Blacksmith Publishing has been serving the Warrior class since 2013. We have great titles written by Warriors for Warriors. So if you're looking for a great reference book on KLEs, land navigation, small unit tactics, whatever, or you just want to unwind with a good novel, check out blacksmithpublishing.com. If you're looking for some cool, unique apparel, head on over to the general store at Pinelander1776.com. Got a lot of interesting stuff added every day. Jackets, sweaters, stickers, patches, a whole bunch of stuff. That's Pinelander1776.com. Until our next meeting, remember, keep your head on a swivel, stay mentally and tactically smart, physically and spiritually strong, and, of course, socially astute. Glory be to Pineland. Glory be to the resistance.